morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to the Wigton Book Festival. My name's Kirsty, and I'm a volunteer with the Wigton YA team. Tonight, in conversation about all things mental health and her book, My Shit Therapist, we have Michelle Thomas. How are you, Michelle?
Hello, I'm well, thank you, Kirsty. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, thanks for being here. Before we start, I just need to go through a couple of housekeeping things with everybody. So if you've got any questions at all for Michelle, it would be great if you could leave them in the comments below. You can chat to us on Instagram or tweet us. But I do ask, since this is our young people strand of the book festival, that you keep it as clean as possible. I'd also like to thank the Hollywood Trust for helping us keep afloat in these uncertain times. And if you hadn't already noticed, all of our events are digital this year, but they're also free. So if you'd like to support us, you can go to wigtonbookfestival.com and click support us to donate. Alright, thanks for bearing with me. Michelle, how about you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Michelle Thomas. I'm an author of the best-selling, thank you very much, book and audiobook, My Shit Therapist and Other Mental Health Stories. So the book covers my own mental health history, which was absolutely fine until I was about 27, and then I went a bit nuts. But it also includes stories from other people. So I wanted to do as much as I can to make sure that it wasn't just another platform for another straight white lady. I wanted to make sure that I covered as many experiences as possible. So I asked for contributions from people from my Instagram or from my Facebook followings, or anyone could email me. And often that was relating to a specific topic or a specific area of life that mental health impacts. So questions that I can't answer, like what's it like to be a parent with a mental health issue? How does where you live impact your mental health? How do you talk to your children? How do you talk to the rest of your family about mental health? How has your mental health been impacted by prejudice against your race or your sexuality? So the book's got these stories in there as well. And it's gone down really well. People have responded really well to it. And I think what I really wanted to do was, I think a lot of the conversation about mental health tends to be in binaries. Like, I wanted to kill myself, but now I run ultra marathons and everything's okay. Whereas that's not how most of us experience life. Most of us kind of manage it, our mental health in the middle, Mad Men. It's that daily, day-to-day stuff. So that's what I wanted to, that's where I wanted to root the book.
Awesome. Well, I just read this book and I really, really enjoyed it, because not only did I find it so relatable, but it was also really educational. And I was wondering, did you always sort of have a really good understanding and knack for mental health? And was your sort of early life education about mental health adequate? How did you find that? Or did you ever have to educate yourself?
Absolutely. I didn't have a clue. I honestly didn't have a clue. So when I was 15, this is a story that's in the book. When I was 15, I saw a Blue Peter program about autism. And the presenter said people who are autistic tend to be very, very intelligent, but they find it very difficult to make friends. And at the time I went, oh my God, that's me. I'm autistic. That's what I am. And obviously the language and the nuances of autism and about the autistic spectrum has moved on a lot in the last 20 years. But that was the first time that I'd ever come across the term. And it really resonated with me. So I took myself to my doctor. I took myself to the GP. And I sat myself down and I looked him straight in the eye and I said, I think I have autism. Which again, I understand isn't typically the action of someone who does fall under the spectrum, but it can be. And my GP said, oh, right, okay. Why do you think that? And it all poured out of me. It all came out, how isolated I was, how I felt like I was sort of missing the guidebook on how to be a person, and how I felt very far removed from my peers, and I didn't really understand what what the point of my life might be. I didn't really see a role for myself in the world. And honestly, he didn't laugh at me. He didn't tell me off for wasting his time. And he just said, "Oh, right, okay. Have you read The Catcher in the Rye?" And I hadn't. And he wrote it down, J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye, and flipped this piece of paper over to me. And he said, "Go home and read that. It will make your life seem normal." And obviously, ideally, literature would not be prescribed for depression. But at the same time, I'm so glad that he didn't ring my parents, thank God. And he didn't put me on medication, which I'm on now, but I don't think would have been right for me at the time. So that was the only sort of frame of reference that I had for when you feel as though there's something not right in your life. You just have to look outside of yourself. And that was really helpful for me at the time. Not the book itself specifically, because I was a 15-year-old girl in rural North Wales, and whatever his name is in Catcher in the Rye is a 15-year-old boy in New York who steals his dad's credit card and goes to hire a sex worker. And I didn't even know where sex workers are in North Wales. Like, they'd be in Wrexham probably, which is a good 2-hour bus ride from where I lived. So just mechanically and logistically, it just wasn't, it was never going to be a goer, the old stealing my dad's credit card and hiring a sex worker thing. But yeah, that was the only time I ever felt that there was something not right with me and reached out for help. And then I was met with, well, think about other people.
Yeah.
Which was enough for me at the time. And then I didn't really think about my mental health until I was 27, when I had a major depressive episode. But no, in those intervening years, not once did I ever really think about myself or anyone else's mental health. The conversations that are alive now about mental health that have really come to life in the last 6 years, the world is a very different place now to what it was even 10 years ago.
That's so, I really, really enjoyed that chapter about the Catcher in the Rye, and just how the doctor sort of, I think we all need someone like that in our lives to just sit down and say, look, you're normal. And if you could be that doctor, if you could go back and talk to Michelle back then, what words of wisdom would you give her, do you think?
Oh God, what would I say to the 15-year-old Michelle? Your life hasn't really started. I was a very odd kid. I was very sort of out of step with my contemporaries in my small town. And I didn't really know what my place could be. I didn't have any sort of, there wasn't even stuff like music that I liked, or I was really obsessed with stuff like the Spice Girls or like the Backstreet Boys. But there wasn't really it didn't help form the person that I am. And I didn't really have any idea what I could be and what I wanted to be. I knew that I was good at writing, but I never really saw myself doing that. So I would just say, oh my God, just give it time, mate. Just give it time. It's going to be all right. And there's a big, mad, wide, brilliant world, and you're going to meet your people, you're going to meet your tribe, and you're going to get to know yourself much better as well, and the things that you're capable of, and you're capable of so much more than you think you are, because you just haven't had the opportunity yet to really stretch yourself and ask yourself those questions. And I think the internet now is just the most, like, I didn't have the internet when I was 15, but now I think it's the most incredible tool for self-education that teenagers can really find out so much more about themselves and about what contribution they can make and what they feel passionate about and what really excites and inspires them. Even that, and even if you spend 3 years going down YouTube rabbit holes about dubstep or about the Greenland shark, do it. Just fill your brain with stuff.
Have you got any advice for the youth of today on how to sort of use social media in a way that's really going to benefit them? Because although it is an incredible resource, it can also be quite toxic at times and sort of romanticize a certain type of adolescence, and you must fit in, you must have the perfect room, you must have these incredible friends, have this incredible life, and be posting about it all of the time. How do you think, would you give any advice on how to sort of shut that out and make social media something you enjoy and something that benefits you?
Do you know, I'm 35 now, and I don't know a single adult who didn't have the internet as a teenager who has gone, God, I wish I had that. God, I wish I had Facebook when I was a teenager, because you're sort of growing up and finding yourself and making your mistakes, as of course you're going to do, on a public platform. And that's not, it could be dangerous. At worst, it's dangerous. At best, it's really embarrassing, and it could potentially hold you back if it's something that you're constantly aware of, and you've constantly got, you've got bloody notifications going up. Oh, do you remember 2 years ago when you were like this? It's bad enough for me, looking back. Oh, do you remember 10 years ago when you had a really nice boyfriend and everything was brilliant? But I imagine, if you're kind of 15, if you like, oh, do you remember this time last year when you were really into this terrible band and the guy turned out to be a wrong-un, the lead singer, and you just go, oh my God, no. And you'd just be so aware of your mistakes on social media. I think the thing to do is to keep, just don't follow anyone who makes you feel like shit. Just don't do it. And this is something that I tell myself as well. That every time you see a post from someone and it feels like a little pin in your heart and it just deflates you a little bit, that's your signal to get rid. Just get rid. And that's really easy for me to say. And I know that there are so many politics for a young person. And if that person knows that you follow them and then knows that you don't follow them, but then their friends know that you don't follow them, but then your friends might say you don't have to follow them, and all that kind of really messy stuff. I wish I had a straight answer, but I don't. I think the best advice I can give to anyone, I think, is to find the people who, and it's not going to be loads, it's not going to be dozens and dozens of people, it might literally be one or two. Find the people who you can absolutely rely on, and absolutely prioritize being a good friend to them as well, and let them sort of be your compass. Let good people be your compass, I would say.
That's so lovely. That's such a beautiful sentiment of disregard everything that anyone's going to tell you. Just follow what you feel inside of yourself. And I think a lot of the social media culture also really matches up with the culture of labels in our society and the culture of pointing out everyone in a different group. And how do you feel like the sort of labels and the sort of diagnosis obsession has affected you? Has a diagnosis helped or sort of hindered your mental health journey?
That's a really interesting one, Kirsty. I did see something about I think it was, I'm not going to say who it was, but they said it was it was framed as a new kind of diagnostic, and it's called something like post-traumatic embitterment syndrome. So it's pathologizing bitterness, and it's pathologizing really normal, really natural, really human responses to our environment. And I think it's a strange one, because my instinct is to go, and I suspect a lot of people's instinct is to go, that's really stupid and dangerous. It's not an illness. Feeling bitter about something terrible that's happened to you isn't an illness. But then I do wonder how useful it is. I mean, for me to think about myself as someone who has depression, it has been useful for me to be able to externalize that thing. So when I'm in the grip of it, I can, and when I know it's on me, I can go, this is what this is. It's not something that's a part of me. I'm not bad. My depression is making me feel bad, but I'm not flawed and I'm not bad. So I do wonder whether the labeling and the diagnostic thing, I do think it has two sides. These are great questions, Kirsty. But the thing is, like, there isn't a straight answer. Like, and this is a privileged thing to be able to say, because my mental health is at a level where I can sort of ruminate on it a little bit. And whether or not I have a diagnosis, I'm sort of robust and resilient enough to be able to go, oh, right, okay, this person doesn't think I'm depressed, or you know, this school of thought thinks that I am. Okay, that's fine. Whereas 5 or 7 years ago, when I was really ill, I desperately wanted to know everything about myself, everything about my illness, so that I knew that everything was going to be okay. So for me to have two ideas about what could be wrong with me, that made me really anxious, because there was nothing absolute about it. And that made that I think mental illness kind of robs you of everything that you knew. You feel like a completely new person. And when you're navigating this brand new landscape, there's nothing really for you to there's nothing familiar. There are no guidelines or signposts. So when you're offered something that could be a signpost, like you might have this disorder, you sort of cling to it. Or, you know, for example, you know, take this medication and it'll make you feel better. Brilliant, I'm going to go and do that. But wait, there's this school of thought that thinks, you know, actually there might be placebos, and actually it might not be a good thing that 1 in 10 adults in the UK is, you know, prescribed medication that could be addictive, and we're not sure what the long-term impact could be. I can't think about any of that stuff at the minute, actually, because I need to get better. And I'm not in a position where I can take 6 months off work and just suspend my life for as long as it takes, and go to yoga and get a personal chef so that I know that I'm getting every single one of the nutrients that I need, and get therapy, you know, spend God knows £200 a week on therapy. If I was in that position, would I need to cling on to the life post and take antidepressants? Don't know, maybe not. But I'm not in that position. So you need to make a decision, and that's really hard when you can't trust the decisions that you make, because you can't trust your brain, because your brain is telling you that the world is a terrible, dangerous place, but there's a part of you that knows that it isn't. It's very strange.
I think it's sort of a double-edged sword, in the way where when you need answers the most about yourself, that is when you're the most confused and the most ill. And I think as well, a diagnosis, it also sort of, it can be used against you by other people as well. Because I feel like when you put a label on yourself, for example, I am experiencing psychosis, I'm experiencing depression, and you tell someone who's maybe not the most informed, to them, you are the person with psychosis, and that becomes your label. And so how do you feel about that? Tell me about your experience with that.
That's a really interesting one, and that's such a nuanced one, because, and I'm in such a privileged position in a way, because I can say, you know, I've experienced depression. I take medication for depression and anxiety. Well, actually, most people can look at that and go, okay, well, that's just feeling sad. And I felt sad, so I know what that feels like. Or I was a bit nervous on the day I took my exams, so I know what that feels like. So it's easier to empathize with, and it's broadly a lot more palatable. Whereas if you you know, like I write in the book that I had an experience of a hallucination. I heard something that wasn't there. And that's not something I would, I mean, it's in the book, but that's not something that I would as readily go, by the way, I also may or may not have another fun thing bubbling away under there, because I don't know what it is. It kind of happened and then disappeared, and it hasn't happened since, touch wood. It might have just been a really weird brain fart that happened on that day. It might be a new thing that is unfolding in my brain, and that might become clear in the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. But I'm really privileged in that I can, if I choose to, I can hide that. And that's not a privilege that a lot of people who have psychosis or who have schizophrenia or who have borderline personality disorder, it's a lot more difficult for them to mask, and that's where education is really, really important, because particularly in a culture where we film everything, we film everyone. If someone's having a breakdown on the tube, you can film it and put it on YouTube, and, you know, look at this weird guy singing to himself. We need to have a lot more empathy in the way that we record, and also in what we consume, what we click on and what we consume. And that's a massive, broad conversation that people with far more brain cells than me are currently having.
Thank you so much. I was just wondering, would you like to go through a reading now?
I think I would, Kirsty. Thank you, right. All right. Is everyone all right? Have you had any complaints about the title of the book yet? Has anyone commented saying...
Questions are coming through, no complaints as of yet.
What do you mean you don't have fully absolute opinions about diagnostics? How dare you? Right, are you ready for a reading?
So excited, go for it. Thank you so much.
All right. You go there. Right. Having depression doesn't mean that I'm always depressed. In the same way that being allergic to bee stings doesn't mean a person is in constant anaphylactic shock. It's only when they get stung that it's a problem. Like a person who is prone to depression, a person with a bee sting allergy can get stung at any time. Their allergy is not dependent on their life circumstances. They could win the lottery, have the body of a South Korean athlete, and attend weekly murder mystery nights with Ruth Jones and Charlotte Church, and they'd still be allergic to bee stings. Their allergy isn't negated by terrible world events or the fact that there are people, many of them, who are worse off than them, and it's profoundly unhelpful to suggest that it is. Being allergic to bee stings doesn't make you a bad friend, a bad parent, or a bad employee. It isn't indulgent or selfish. It's a chemical anomaly. If an allergic person is stung by a bee, it's important that they don't feel afraid or ashamed to get help. Treatments that may relieve the effects of a bee sting for a person who is not allergic to them, such as vinegar or spit on a dock leaf, are not effective to a person who is allergic to bee stings. Those allergic people need an EpiPen and, in some cases, professional medical attention. You can't snap out of an allergy, and a positive mental attitude, although helpful, is not the antidote. A person who is allergic to bee stings may encounter a bee and not get stung. For example, if a friend or colleague with an allergy fears they are at risk, they might say to you, "Hi, I'm allergic to bee stings and there's a bee in my office. I'm going to close the window to prevent more bees from coming in. I would also like to remove this enormous bouquet of flowers from my desk." And you could say, "Sure thing, I'll put the bouquet in my office instead." If that person hasn't been stung for a while, it doesn't mean they're no longer allergic. Though they may take every precaution, no one is guaranteed lifelong bee sting evasion. However, no one should live in fear of their body's response to a chemical imbalance. By encouraging people to talk openly about their allergies and educating others about what to do if they encounter someone having an allergic reaction, we can make our garden safer for everyone, and we can all enjoy some time in the sun.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. I really liked that bit. Say so myself. But yeah, I do think it's a nice analogy.
I really like that. I was wondering what you think about the sort of the way that sort of companies and corporations are dealing with mental health at the minute. A lot of the campaigns are just talk about it. It's okay not to be okay. Let's talk about it. And I was wondering,
Talk about it, mate.
Especially, for example, if you're having like a psychotic break or if you're having a crisis of mania, talking about it isn't going to help.
Talk about it, mate.
Just talk about it. Have a cup of tea. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Have you tried talking about it?
Do you think that cheapens the sort of, is that a cheap cop out to say just talk about it? How do you feel about that?
Kirsty, I love you so much. Is it a cheap cop out? So yes, the major campaigns that we've been, well, so first of all, talking is great. Like talking, double daggers, double thumbs up, superb, love
For
it.
sure.
Can't get enough of it. Wonderful. I'm not trying to cancel talking. But what I will say is that it evades and it ignores the root cause, or what could be the root cause of a lot of the structural cause of mental illness in a society that doesn't care whether or not ill people get better. You can't say, you can't have a campaign based on just talk to people when you're not making talking therapy available to people who can't afford it. And it's really, it's shitty to say, just talk about it when, you know, the NHS budget has been slashed to smithereens and we're being, just talk about it. Just talk about the fact that we're being gaslit as a nation about the impact of COVID-19 and the way our government has dealt with it. And yes, we drove to Durham, but we didn't say that you couldn't drive to Durham. But I did it because I'm an honourable man, and you would have done the same thing. But if you had done the same thing, you would have broken the law and gotten a £10,000 fine. But it's all right that I did it. It's like it's okay. Calm down, Michelle.
I could not agree more.
Talking is brilliant. Talking is great. But if you're not, it is a cheap cop-out if you're not then giving people the tools or offering people the way to make like profound structural differences in a life that might be making them really, really ill. It's not going to do you much good to talk if you are living in, if you're paying like 2/3 of your money for a room to rent, that is never going to be yours, and like you're sharing with 6 other people. It's not going to do you much good to talk. I'm really sorry, my cat is currently destroying. I'm being strident, Caroline. Stop it. I'm doing really well. Honestly, she's just so starved of attention. So yes, I think talking is brilliant. It's also really important to properly fund the NHS. You know, properly just sort out landlords, just sort out all of that so that we're not paying, 2/3 of our income to rent somewhere that could be taken away from us at 2 months' notice. And yeah, give people options and make it.
Yeah.
And it really annoys me when brands, when you see brands hopping on the "it's good to talk" thing. You know what else is good? Not employing people on 0 hours contracts. That's quite good as well, mate. To be honest. So yeah, that's a good one.
I really enjoyed your chapter about your sort of issues with housing and how that's impacted your mental health, and so how the two struggles sort of coexist, but they're also sort of codependent.
Definitely.
And do you think that tackling mental health is like fundamental in tackling the housing crisis in the UK as well.
Definitely, absolutely. And I think the broad "it's good to talk" thing completely ignores issues about race inequality, about LGBT inequality, about the fact that trans people are being attacked left, right, and centre by a really perplexing media campaign. Like, there's a really perplexing hate campaign against trans people at the minute, which I really don't get. I don't understand who benefits from it. I don't get it, because trans people are such a tiny proportion of our society. I don't understand what the benefit is in criminalizing them and violating them and brutalizing them and etc., etc. Yes, trans rights. Where were we? Housing. What was the question again? I'm really sorry. I got really excited and really strident. I live on my own, can you tell? I don't get to talk to many people in the day, so I'm just like, hello, what's your favourite colour? You know what it's like to be a radiator. Let's talk about makeup. Right, where was it? Where were we? Sorry, housing. Is tackling the mental health crisis part of the housing crisis? Yes, I do think that they're absolutely co-linked. I do think the housing crisis in particular is if there was a way for us to tackle that, I do think so many people's lives would be so much easier. Yeah,
because it's easy for a lot of us to sit here and say, oh, like, and talk about our own problems, but a lot of people right now, especially with COVID-19, are going through such terrible times, and just talk about it isn't going to help them.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, really liked in your book, at the end of every chapter, you go through a million different people's experiences about, because I really like, because you just yourself, you can't cover the entire sort of stigma and the entire sort of experience of mental health. And
I was very conscious of that. I was very conscious that most mental health books are written by people who look and sound a lot like me, which is sort of white middle class people, or seemingly middle class. I'm really chippy about that. But yeah, I wanted to cover as many experiences as I can, and of course I haven't. And that's why at the back of the book there is like a list of recommended reading, and I'll just call out a couple of those. Bam, bam, bam. There's a glossary. There's the recommended reading page. There's me holding a little umbrella. No. So yeah, I would really like to recommend The Colour of Madness, Exploring BAME Mental Health in the UK by Samara Linton, and that's by Skiddaw Books in 2018. Tin Can Cook by Jack Monroe. So that's ways that you can feed yourself and nourish yourself when you're depressed and you've got nothing in the house and you can't really face a busy supermarket. That one's super duper. And it's just those two. And Mind Your Head by Juno Dawson is a fabulous trans writer, and she covers.
Who is also on our Wheaton Book Festival program this year.
Oh, she is. I'm a brilliant company.
Awesome, thank you so much. I wanted to talk a bit about your writing process and how did you always sort of journal as a kid, and how did you bridge the gap between journaling for your own benefit and journaling for a wider audience and talking about your wider experience?
I still try, like, journaling is brilliant. And I would, like, one of the things that I wholeheartedly recommend to anyone who's looking for ways to manage their mental health that doesn't involve spending 30 quid on a scented candle is, like, just get a pen and paper and just write it out. And nobody has to see it. You don't have to read it again. Just get it out of your head and onto the page. And I think, like, the physical act of writing, there's some really clever, complex left and right brain business that means that when you form those figures and those characters on the page with your hands, it's like you're exercising yourself. It's like you're getting those thoughts out of your brain and onto the page, and they're not as powerful when you can see them, and when they're not as powerful when they're not just living in your brain.
Yeah.
So I would say that journaling and writing every day is critical, and is genuinely one of the most helpful tools that you can use. For me, yes, I loved writing. I always wrote when I was a kid. I've always sort of scribbled and journaled as a way to, mostly when I was feeling bad, actually. I'm not a brilliant kind of discipline. I'm not one of those writers who's like, oh, I will wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do 3 hours of writing every day. Although I am trying to get better. I am trying to do like my 3 morning pages in the morning, but throughout my 20s, no. I only really wrote when I thought I had something to say, when really you should write all the time, because you've always got something. There's always something knocking about in there. So yes, and then I had a manic depressive episode, and then I had to quit my job. I had quite a sexy job at the time. I was an agent for a comedy company, and I had to just quit it because I was just like, no, don't like that, not doing that, not going there anymore. And then I started working in a cafe, which meant that I could I'd started work at 6 in the morning until 12 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I could write in the afternoon. And it was just a lovely job that I could do, and it covered the bills, and it didn't take up all my brain power. I had enough energy to go home and write. And that's when I started sorting out a portfolio. I started having little creative ideas. I tried to crowdfund for 2 books. They both failed. That's fine. It's still there. I've still got that writing somewhere. And then after a few years, and then I wrote a blog that did really well and went viral, and then I got a bit of an audience. And then someone approached me about writing a book about body image. And I said, yeah, okay. And then I pitched for it, and they went, nah, actually, can you do one about mental health instead? And it wasn't something that I'd really thought about. And because it wasn't something, frankly, that I felt very qualified to do. I thought you had to be someone who had very absolute ideas, or had, a PhD and sort of knew what they were talking about a bit more than I do. But then I realized it could be I could talk about what I knew, because most people are like me. 1 in 4 people do experience poor mental health, and I'm pretty sure 1 in 4 people don't have a PhD in brain chemistry. So that's what I decided to do. I sort of let go of this idea that I was gonna encompass the entire everything to do with mental health. That was my first idea. I was just like, I am gonna work out exactly how the brain works, and I'm gonna put it in a book. And I'm just gonna boss it. I'm just gonna boss it by learning everything about everything. I'm gonna cover the entire DSM. I'm gonna put all the conditions in there. It's gonna be amazing. But I couldn't do that because I'm not that person. And there are books like that do exist. Cracked is a really good one by James, whose surname I've forgotten, but it's very good. It's in the book. So yes, I've forgotten the question again. I'm really sorry. Writing process. Yes, so that was a thing. So yes, and then, so then I pitched the mental health book, and I thought, right, that it's going to be these chapters. It's going to cover all this, and the main thing for me was when I was ill, I wrote and read and listened to everything that I could find that was about mental health. And this was about 8 years ago. So this is pre Ruby Wax, Matt Haig, Bridie Gordon. This is before all of the sort of the big hitters, when it comes, like before the mental health, before it really hit the zeitgeist. And so everything that I could find was really, really boring. It was really, really dry.
Yeah.
And it was sort of, when you have poor mental health, you will find that you can't have any sort of interesting or sparkly or nothing is ever funny. Everything is very dry. And it just bored me to tears, and it made me more depressed, which is just the last thing that I needed. So what I wanted was, what my aim to write the book was to write something that mimicked the conversations that I had with my friends about our mental health, conversations that were frank and funny and a bit weird, but that made it more tangible and made it more accessible. That we'd often fire off a text that goes, I had this really weird anxiety dream last night and I feel a bit wonky today. Can we have a quick chat about it? And my friends will just go, right, okay, let's cover the bases. Have you eaten? Have you slept? Have you taken your meds? Are you on your period? And just being able to have that very normal, very down to earth, very unscary conversation is just the gateway to being able to sort of manage your mental health a lot more. So that was my process, and that's what I wanted to do with this book. And I think I found my voice now, and I figured out who I am as a writer. And I sort of write as I speak, really. I don't have the imagination, and I'm too lazy to do it any other way. And I think that's having the confidence to do that. And that comes from people reading it and going, oh, that's quite good, actually. But in order to get that feedback, you have to put it out, and you have to get some, and you're going to get some knockbacks, and you're going to get some rejection, and that's really scary. But just put it out, and don't worry about it being perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. One of the things that I've had to accept as a writer is that I will always look back on it and go, oh, I wish I could have another go at this. I wish I could change this. I wish I could do that. Let it go. Just let it go, because otherwise it's just going to eat you up and you'll never get anything done.
Thank you so much. The first when I read this book, honestly, the first thing I did was I covered it in a million post-it notes with notes on them. And the second thing I did
so exciting
was tell everyone I knew to read the book. Because it was just, it was so down to earth, so refreshing and so relatable. And
thank you. I mean, when you say you told them all to read it, you did tell them all to buy it as well, right? I mean, that's...
Of course.
That was a joke. I will say, you can always order My Shit Therapist from your local library. Please remember to support your library at this difficult time.
Local
and you can get it on ebook and on audiobook from your local library. And I also do get a little kickback from that as well, so don't feel bad about it.
I was wondering. Yes, I was wondering because obviously when people read this book, they'll learn a lot about themselves, but did writing this book, did it teach you anything about yourself at all?
Honestly, when I was writing it, so when you write a book, you write a 30,000 word proposal, and then that goes to the publisher, and then they go, right, okay, we'll give you some money and you can write the book. So then they sent me a contract. But in between them sending me the contract and us all actually signing the contract, there was about a year to go. This is Caroline, everyone. So in that year, I just didn't do any work because I didn't want to jinx it, which is really stupid and really bad. And then when they signed the contract, they went, okay, so do you think you can turn it around in 3 months? And I went, yeah. Sure. And I did, and I worked full-time for an advertising agency. I'm a writer for an advertising agency, so I'd go to work and work 9 till 6, and then I'd stay behind at work until sort of 10 or 11 at night and write.
Wow. And
do it over weekends, and it was a lot. It was very intense. So, but because of that, and I did it in 3 months, but because of that, I didn't really have a lot of time to second guess it to go, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about this, or how will this person feel if I write that, or do I need to check with anyone before I put this in? I just had to get it out. And that was really scary, but it's also really, really liberating. Just to go, right, it's gone. Just get it all out and get it gone.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm really sorry, Kirsty. I've forgotten the question again. I'm so sorry.
That's
I'm just
absolutely
getting really
fine.
by this idiot cat. What was it? The writing process. Did I learn anything about myself?
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I can write a 80,000 word book in 3 months. That was pretty impressive.
Which is incredible.
Really,
yeah.
I was really pleased with that. And one of the reasons why I was so pleased about that is that after you've when you've had the depressive episode that I had, I had to quit my job and I went to work in a cafe, which was it was perfect for me at the time, but I really felt the and this is awful, but I did feel like a loss in status, and I felt like I was doing something that was a lot less impactful that I could do, and I lost a lot of confidence in myself, and I didn't really trust that I was capable of doing the things that I would have been capable of doing before. Caroline, I'm being very serious here, very soulful. I'm having a serious moment with Kirsty, and you're just flapping your bell at me. Where was I? Yes, trusting myself. So and working in a cafe was great for building my genuinely brilliant for building my confidence, especially in terms of like talking to people and handling money, handling other people's money, all that kind of stuff. So then working up to that, and then getting my writing job, and then writing this book in 3 months, it really it felt like, okay, I am my old self again. Because that's the thing about mental illness, it feels like a loss of the self. You don't feel like the same person. So when the book was out, it was like, oh right, okay, I'm back. And that was really special.
That's so special. Oh, thank you so much. We can go to some audience questions now.
Audience.
Which is very exciting. Questions. Audience question time. We've got a question from Steph. So
are they all about the cat? Is that all the questions? Is it just going to show us the cat show?
I really hope there was going to be some cat questions, but there's not.
Okay. All right. Hello, Steph. What's your question?
Steph's just put in another question saying, can we please see your cat? So.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I know. She's awful.
She's gorgeous.
The worst thing in the world. Right. Okay, Steph.
Cat shenanigans over. Serious time.
Shenanigans are over. Serious health questions only from now on, please. I'm a very serious writer.
Scene. So Steph says, what impact do you think the pandemic has had on young people now and long term? Will there ever be enough mental health services to address this? Also, do you think if we could change the way the world works, we would not need mental health services?
Ooh.
There's quite a few questions.
I'm going to go from the last one first. If we could change the way the world works, I think it's not necessarily changing. I mean, it is changing a lot of the way that the world works in terms of the structural equality and the like money. Ugh. Ew, no, just share it. Universal credit, universal basic income. Just instead of like some people being mega minted and some people being like dying of starvation in this country, let's just everyone have a bit. I know that's radical. That might.
But yeah, no, totally.
I'm not a politician and I'm not an economist.
Michelle for president.
But I just think, guys, let's just take a bit of that and do that with it.
Yeah.
So yes, if the world were a brilliant place, mental health services would work in a completely different way. I do think they'd still be necessary because I think part of the human condition, like there will be times when people's brains work in a different way. The brain is a physical organ and there will always be people who need that help. But yeah, in a perfect world, I think far fewer people would be taking medication. I think far fewer people would suffer as much, and there would be far fewer people who are feeling they have no option but to opt out. And like I say, I think that's in my case, if I'd had, if I was able to take 6 months off my life, get all the therapy that I wanted, have someone clean my house and do my laundry, and so that I didn't have to do anything but focus on getting well, would I have needed the medication? Maybe not. But that's not the world that we're living in.
Like, we all have the right to be well, so why do some people have to choose between being mentally well and feeding their kids? Like, that shouldn't be a thing.
No. And there was a question about what is the impact on the mental health of what is the impact of the pandemic on the mental health of young people? This is, I mean, the impact of the trauma that we're all undergoing because of this pandemic, and I don't say that lightly. I mean we're all grieving at different levels for a world that doesn't exist anymore and will never exist again. Our lives will never be the same now as they were this time last year, and all of us feel that in a different way. And for example, I went into a cafe for the first time last month, and I was able to actually go inside, and I genuinely started crying because it was so familiar, and it was something that I'd missed so much, but it was so different. It was that really uncanny thing of something being so familiar and something that I loved, but being completely changed. That's a massively first world white lady problem, crying over some pastries. However, the grief for a world that we've lost is valid, and people are going to feel that in a different way. For young people in particular, it's interesting because it's the delay in adulthood that I think is going to really hurt young people. I think young children up to the age of, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14, I think that's a very different set of concerns. But I think for the young people who are graduating and who were hoping that their lives would start in a completely new way now, that's going to be very, very tough. And those are the young people that we really need to support now.
That's so lovely. Thank you. Okay, we have a question from Kay. I'm about to start life on a writing course. I feel I have a story to tell, and I anticipate that the writing journey will be therapeutic in itself. I'm negotiating about delving deep, but also letting others in. What advice would you give to beginners like me?
How do I feel about delving deep and letting others in? Honestly, Kay, don't let others in, is my advice at this point. If you're writing, you have to write for yourself. So you cannot think, like I said, I wrote the book in its entirety in about 3 months. And because of that, I didn't have time to go, what will this person think? Do I really want to disclose that? Do I really want to talk about the time when I thought I might have heard a voice that wasn't really there? I didn't have time to worry about that, and I didn't hold anything back. So I just wrote it as it needed to be. And I think that's the best advice I can give anyone, is write as you want to write. And then once you've done that, you can read that back and go, do you know what, that bit's just for me. I'm glad that I wrote that. I'm glad it's out of my head and onto the page, but I don't need to share that with anyone else at this point. You can take it out. You might look at it in 12 months' time or 2 years and think, I'm ready now, I can share it. But that's a decision that only you can make. And I can't think of anything more helpful than asking for the opinion of someone who might be very, very well meaning. Like, or someone who might have their own opinions of what you're writing or your own version of events of what you could be writing. That's not helpful at all. Write for yourself first and foremost. And good luck with the course, and let me know how it goes, and slide into my DMs and send me your book when it's done, and I'll read it, and it'll be great.
Good luck, Kay. We're all sending
That's the same for, yes, good luck, Kay.
Yes. So, we have another question from Steph. Do you think it's normal to function at least a very low grade of depression considering the world's reality?
Ooh. Is it normal to function at a low level of depression considering the reality?
I guess that sort of ties in. We all have mental health. It should, yeah.
And the thing, I mean, honestly, yes, the world is on fire in a bin at the moment, but at different points in history, it has felt that way. And is it normal to function at a low level of depression? I think that's a different question from, is it normal to be anxious and concerned about the state that the world is in? That's completely normal. Being engaged and being and noticing things and caring about things, that's the human experience. And sometimes that is going to be frightening, and sometimes that is going to make us sad. But that's what we're here for. That's not the same thing as feeling at a level of depression where those kind of things don't really impact you. And this is my experience, when I was depressed, I couldn't really think about the state of the world. Like the climate change and worrying about what I was going to have for lunch. It was the same level of, oh my God, I'm a failure, when I was really, really ill. So that was a different experience. This is a uniquely testing time in our lifetime, and I hope you're all right, Steph. Do look after yourself. Everyone look after yourself.
That's so lovely to hear about just how powerful writing is, we're all in this together, and that's so lovely for you to say. Thank you so much. And
I spoke to my mum about this, who is a young lady in her, she's going to kill me for saying this, in her early 70s. And she was saying, when I was young, that the threat of the nuclear bomb was absolutely real. We thought it was going to happen. And they talked about it in schools, and newspapers had these kind of pull-out things saying what to do if a nuclear attack happens. So the wheel hasn't been reinvented. I know we've got very particular challenges, we've got very new challenges, but the wheel hasn't been reinvented in terms of trauma and pain, unfortunately. So humans have dealt with and met this stuff before. This is the thing about trauma, and this is another thing that's in the book. There are only 12 musical notes, I think. I'll have to check that. But there are a certain number of musical notes, right? In the same way, there are only a certain number of human trauma. And every single one of those has been met and dealt with before in history. And yes, some people have not been able to cope and have had to opt out. But whatever you're going through, there is a precedent. Whatever is happening to you, someone else has dealt with it and met it before. And you can find that out through books and through talking to people. So that's what I would say. There is no reinventing the wheel when it comes to trauma.
You've been lovely.
For everything.
That's such a lovely note to end on. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is it time already?
I know, it's gone by so fast.
Should we have one more question? Are we allowed? Is there one more?
There's one more question from Madeline. Hi, Michelle. I really love your jumper. Where are you going next?
Where are you going
next? What's up next for you?
What's up next for me? Okay, the jumper is from Next. Very reasonable. And what's next is I'm currently working on a podcast, which is based on the best-selling audiobook based on the book. It's called My Shit Therapist, and it is available where you have all of your podcasts. And it's the same sort of vein as the book, where I get contributions from people and we talk about their mental health issues in a nice, friendly, upbeat way. And yeah, I think it's good. Do join in. It's brilliant. And yes, follow me on Instagram at Ms. M. Thomas and in all of the usual places, and email me. And, you know, like I say, I live on my own. I don't get to chat to people very often. So do send me things to read and etc. etc. And look after yourselves. And thank you so much, Kirsty, and to everyone at Wigtown.
No problem.
Had a lovely time.
I've had so much fun. Thank you so much. This has been such a lovely conversation.
Yeah, it has.
If you want to read Michelle's book, My Shit Therapist, make sure to support your local bookshops, and you can also find it on our website. So,
and your local library.
And your local library. And also listen to Michelle's podcast as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a lovely time. Stay safe. Thank you so much.